Hi there, welcome back to On the Flip Side. I am Adam Shawalker, your host, and today we are going to be taking a look at this new Dream Theater record, A View from the Top of the World. Dream Theater have been dropping albums pretty consistently for the better part of their career, and never really waiting too long in between releases and touring cycles, and I think that there could be a case to be made about the struggle for relevancy and this kind of sound in the modern era. The Dream Theater approach seems to be less of a celebration of reinvention, but more of a rehashing of old ideas, each record with some slightly different angles on the writing end. But when you are a band that is known for long song lengths, complex writing, and hefty guitar solos, I think that the formula can really only get stretched so far. So we have this new collection of tracks from Dream Theater, none of which really bring much new or exciting to the table. Everything from a technical standpoint is incredibly impressive, but the touch and that sensitivity that Dream Theater seem to selectively have once in a while on certain records isn't really here, and hasn't been here for a few albums. The real issue, I think, is that when you're prog metal gods and music prodigies, that you can only get so far when you can't really write that solid of a hook or a riff. The first track is The Alien, which is also the lead single for this album. The track is immediately overwhelming, and not in a very good way. The track is mixed to a point of sterility, and the dynamics are very much laser focused. The bass is crunchy, the drums hit exactly where you want them to, and the guitar is very in your face. There's kind of a kitchen here with too many cooks in it, and that's really the biggest problem. The excellence of this band really muddies itself when everything is so solid to the point that it skips over being really awesome and lands face first in being bland. The lyrical content is pretty standard as far as a sci-fi themed song goes, with some pretty neat stuff about escaping the grip of being a one-planet species and becoming a galactic presence. It's not really all that original, but it does work well for this style of music, especially since the majority of the ideas here are, ironically enough, being recycled, so it does unfortunately end up fitting that motif. I do actually kind of enjoy some of James LaBrie's vocal deliveries as well. He does at least have a solid grasp of these things and doesn't go too overboard here. John Petrucci really needs to stop modulating every single riff, as it does get exhausting after a certain point. But as far as this song goes, this is still probably one of the better tracks on the album. The next song is Answering the Call. This one has a pretty solid intro that gets kind of thrown off by these weird upbeat keyboard parts. The backing track for the song kind of reminds me of ambient tracks from like a Final Fantasy game or something. Actually, that's kind of a big problem for a lot of Dream Theater songs that I haven't really been able to nail down until now. A lot of the songs that they write inevitably feeling like JRPG soundtracks, or maybe like bullet hell soundtracks, which in theory isn't all that bad, but I mean, it almost comes off as cheesy when you think about it. I mean, there's really no way that that was the sound they were going for, but here you are with all these kind of goofy tracks. I still think the song sonically is fine, but it still has a pretty big problem of being sonically so good that it's bland, but I mean, I can at least give them some credit that if I wanted to tune this song out very easily, I could, which is almost kind of an insult when you think about it. I don't want a song really to be a pushover, but I don't want it to be, really obnoxious either. And this song seems to kind of tiptoe right down the middle of being unremarkable. Up next is Invisible Monster. This song has a pretty dramatic symphonic style for the intro of this song. The whole track seems to draw focus to dealing with problems like anxiety and dread in the day-to-day. So it's kind of a nice track about mental health awareness, but it does kind of lose a bit of meaning when you pair it with this very over-the-top style of like prog metal. It doesn't really come across as silly at the very least, but it could be a little bit more tasteful or even a little bit more visceral. The next song is Sleeping Giant. This is a hefty 10-minute long track that stumbles over its own weight. It seems like Dream Theater is the #1 most guilty band I see of having songs that are unnecessarily long to a fault. The unfortunate thing with progressive metal and most metal subgenres is that the strength of their consistency is also a weakness to innovation and testing new ideas. So Dream Theater goes and writes these incredibly long, epic songs that can't really maintain an interesting listening experience, and then the whole thing just kind of falls apart, and they seem to just do this again and again. I don't know why. The most interesting part of all of this is that other genres aren't nearly as susceptible to this kind of thing like any metal subgenre is. I mean, artists like Steven Wilson, certainly not universally loved, but he has the room to stretch and try out new approaches to his sound from different genres and styles. But Dream Theater has this crutch of being typecast by their own hand, really. I do think, again, that some of the best work on this song is from James LaBrie, because despite the fact that he is such an accomplished singer and can do some pretty crazy vocal stuff, he keeps things relatively simple on his end. The amount of these, really technical nonsense, like tracks that drive these songs doesn't really affect his vocals at all, and I do really appreciate that because it gives you an anchor to kind of hold on to while he's present in the track. The next song is Transcending Time. This song is the shortest on the album and instrumentally one of the more straightforward songs on the whole record. There's a lot in this track that reminds me of a classic era Rush song with some very strong synth work and some very solid drum work. The lyrics are kind of silly in a sci-fi way, but by all means they're not bad. This song really hits a stride that makes me think that this is very much a Rush tribute track of some kind. I mean, all of those elements are in this song, but not so obvious as to be distasteful. But if you were to listen to like Xanadu and Closer to the Heart and then listen to this song, just, tell me I'm wrong. I don't think that there have been many moments on this album where I've really enjoyed the listen, but this song is exactly the right sound that Dream Theater should be going for, in my opinion. The solo work is still a little bit out of control, but this is still probably my favorite song on the album so far. Up next is Awaken the Master. This song kind of mashes together what is probably the worst parts of modern progressive metal with some of the best parts of classic prog rock, with some very garish guitar work and really neat synth work that in the 70s would have been considered kick-ass, but now with the juxtaposition of this unfortunate song seems a little bit embarrassing. There is some pretty legitimately beautiful piano work in this intro, but it just kind of gets stepped on and overtaken immediately by the guitar work. Admittedly, the lyrics for this one aren't very great. I think they really want to have this grand sound, but in the process they once again kind of fumble with their own writing. Making a track sound big is not necessarily the same as track density. They really could have left things be in a lot of places, but once again we get a bloated track with moments of brilliance overshadowed by incredibly busy writing. The final track is the title track for this album, A View from the Top of the World. This song sits just over 20 minutes in runtime, and in the course of that time really only proves that at least half of this band would be better suited to doing film composition work. The theatrics of this song, while kind of fun, quickly become tired as the track rolls through its intro sequence. I do think that the worst part of this song is how much I'd really like to love it. The whole thing has really good bones, especially if it were to be separated into like 4 or 5 different tracks. One of the main problems that I end up having is that for whatever reason there has been at no point in the time where Dream Theater have stepped back and just kind of focused on quality and simplicity to give, the really complex songs room to stand out and breathe. It's kind of like framing a picture, then putting that picture on the wall in the right place. In the same way that you don't want to crowd a piece of art, you don't want to crowd a song with too many like songs, or at least with songs that aren't necessarily complementary. And that's what I think, hits kind of the heart of the problem for Dream Theater. So when you pack this much into a song, the only thing that stands out is how much you've kind of tested the patience of the listener. The music is not really a hard listen, it's not really abrasive. While it is technically complicated, it's really easy to wrap your head around. The issue is that it's framed poorly, and with the other songs here, that's kind of the problem with every other song as well. I think that this song, while being impressive in length and pretty solid sound-wise, it just doesn't end up being a strong enough track to justify its own giant size. The lyrics are almost entirely the same ideas as the last track, and the instrumentals sound like a collection of like the best of riffs from every single one of their previous releases. I really would love a solid Dream Theater record in the next few years. It seems every once in a while they drop something at least somewhat worthwhile. Their self-titled album from 2013 I did enjoy to a pretty good extent. Train of Thought from 2003 is a solid album, and Images and Words is at the very least an iconic record because it had a lot of firsts. I would absolutely kill to hear what Dream Theater could do if they changed their approach just a little bit and maybe flip things on their head. I'd love an ambient Dream Theater album, or like a death metal album, or even something with like looser boundaries like a noise album, or maybe some avant-garde stuff. I think that this collection of musicians is world-class, and as a result of staying in their comfort zones, they have stagnated to a point of redundancy and are slowly battling with relevancy. And I think really the only solution is going to be reinvention. A View from the Top of the World is a solid 5. Thank you all so much for watching again. I apologize for the delay in videos. I've had a busy few weeks and fell behind on a few projects like this one. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing and click like on the video. It really helps get these seen by more folks like you. And finally, check out my Instagram and my Reverb store. The links to those are in the description. Thank you all so much again, and we'll see you on the flip side.